can stand. From the mountain to the ocean, from the windward to the leeward side.
Aloha everybody and welcome back. You're watching Rise Above Hawaii, which is a 30-minute talk story on health. But you know, my definition of health is everything and anything that concerns our life. And so today we have a special guest, Pauline, who is really an inspiration, to say the least. I'll have Pauline talk a little bit about, could you tell the viewers a little bit about yourself? And
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. My name is Pauline. I'm originally from San Jose, California, but we moved to the Big Islands 5 years ago.
Oh.
And we moved here, we, meaning my husband and my son and two stepkids, we moved here together just to get out of the rat race. San Jose is a very high-paced, high-stressed area. And so we just moved here for a more better quality of life.
Oh.
And as you can see, I was actually born without arms and legs. And it was great being raised in California because it's a very progressive mindset. There's a lot of resources out there to help people with disabilities. And I owe a lot of my success to my parents because they really made sure that I was afforded all the opportunities to experience a full life and help me understand that I was worthy of a full life regardless of what the outside appearance was. And you know, the favorite story I like to tell people is actually, and I think it sets the tone for the rest of my life, was the day I was born. And all the ultrasounds and the tests during my mother's pregnancy show that I was going to be completely normal. So there was no indication that they should expect anything out of the normal when I was born, and I was their firstborn daughter. So it was, and you know, it's an exciting thing. I'm a mother myself, and it's an exciting thing to welcome a new baby into the world. But when I was born, the doctors pulled me out, and my mother was unconscious because she had a cesarean, and back in the 70s, they knocked you out as a mother. And they pulled me out, and they were shocked, and my parents were given the opportunity to give me up into an institution. The doctors were suggesting that they weren't prepared, and that maybe that would be the better way to go because
amazing.
You know, in fact, there'd be facilities and professionals to handle my needs. But my parents, my father was the first to find out, and when he told my mother about the situation, she answered with 4 words of faith, and she said, "Thy will be done."
Wow.
And they recognized that I had a heart and soul, and because of that, they decided to take me home and just deal with the challenges as they came. And
amazing.
They did really good. They did a really good job.
Wow, that's great parents, folks. That's, geez. I think that's, every parent would like to respond like that, you know, in their heart. But to actually, to do it like that, that's proof in the pudding, folks.
Yes.
Amazing. You know, when I asked Rosie, and Rosie said, "Kimo, you got to talk to this woman. Her name's Pauline, and she's incredible." And I said, "Well, what makes her incredible?" "Well, you know, she has a disability." And when I asked her, "You know, do you have a disability?" And she goes, "I have a disability?" You know? So, I mean, your attitude on people with disabilities is quite remarkable. What's the take-home message for you?
For me, attitude is everything.
Yeah.
It really is the small thing that makes the big difference.
Yeah.
And I don't live through my body. I live in my spirit. And in our spirits, we're all free.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, I don't see me as, when I close my eyes and I picture me, I don't see a body with missing faculties.
Yeah.
I see myself just like you. And I just allow myself to go out there and live life to its fullest, and I deserve that. Everybody does. And, you know, I think it's, you know, I see people and they look at me and they stare, or, you know, people here are really helpful. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to move to Hawaii, is because people here are so much more accepting and welcoming, and that aloha spirit really shines through. And they step up without me even having to ask. And so that's a huge thing. But to me, I live in my mind and my heart. I don't live in my body. Yeah,
that's wow. That's a real good take-home message for folks, you know, who are suffering from other, or not suffering, just dealing with other conditions. You know, you live in your mind and your spirit. I like that. That's good. You know, I didn't know you was from San Jose?
Yep.
I thought you was local, because you get the local look as so.
Yeah, I'm half Filipino, so I can blend in.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I can pull off the accent though. So,
yeah, that's cute. Yeah, we have a lot of Filipinos here. They're part of the fabric in our society. So
yes.
So so you have Filipino, half white.
Yep.
Okay. And then so is there a lot of Filipinos in San Jose?
Yeah, you know, the difference I think between Hawaii and California is that California has segregated. You have your Filipino community, you have your Vietnamese community, you have your Spanish community.
Yeah.
Over here, everyone's everything. So there's not a lot of lines drawn.
Yeah, that's true. We're pretty much a mix.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm Portuguese Hawaiian, but there's Portuguese, Japanese, Hawaiian, Filipino. So we mix. But we've started off in plantation era. So you know, our districts kind of evolved with plantation. You know. That framework. So Portuguese is, you know, I would say Portuguese, you say honoka'a. You know, Japanese, you say wekiuka.
Oh, okay.
You know, Caucasian, you kona. You know, so there is a little bit like that, but not as much as I think on the mainland, where I think we're more integrated.
Oh, yeah.
I would say, yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard to draw lines in people because they're everything.
They're everything, yeah.
Rolled up in one, and that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
You know, in California, I always had to, you know, as soon as people found out I was Filipino, it's like, oh, you're Filipino. It's like suddenly the Filipino community wanted to welcome me with open arms, you know, because I looked probably more. I don't know if I looked more white over there, but you know, they wanted to draw those lines, and here it's just you're accepted.
Yeah. Do you think it's What's the pros and cons with drawing lines? Like one pro with drawing lines is people get resources. You know, I'm Hawaiian, you know, or because of the history of oppression and racism, you know, that has affected our people. So, you know, I want some payback for that. But if I didn't identify as that, I wouldn't have that payback. So maybe that's a pro. But the disadvantage is, you know, I'm this. Well, if you're that, then I don't feel as connected to you. Because now you're kind of like separating yourself from, and I think that's what race does in a sense. It makes people separated. But there's some pros as well. Though. What's your thoughts on race and how people define themselves?
On race, actually, I'm gonna widen that question because I think it's cultural.
Okay.
Because I could say disability is not a race. Disability covers all races.
That's true.
But it's its own culture.
That's true. That's true. That's good.
And we have our own history, and we have our own challenges, and we have our own battles to go out there and I don't want to say fight because I don't like that word, but
endure.
Endure. That's a horrible.
Yeah,
but there's different challenges that we have to look at and resolve. So you know, in a way, disability crosses all of those.
That's true,
and that's an awesome thing. The one thing that I think a pro would be to have the lines drawn, and not necessarily the lines drawn, but having the people kind of connected with each other is that connection. I know for me as a person with a disability growing up, there was very rare opportunities for me to meet with other people with disabilities.
I see.
There was no role models for me to look up at in the media to say, wow, look at that person. Yeah. That person has a disability, but yet they're living powerfully and successfully.
Yeah.
And there was no role model or mentor to do that. But if you got in the same groups of people with disabilities, and even disability, that's such a wide term because you have so many different types of disabilities. Yeah. But if you got in the same group, you could have that connectivity. Yeah. Because even as I was going through challenges growing up, my mom could say it's going to be okay, but and deep and down inside, it's like, how do you know it's going to be okay? Because I have to live with this. Yeah. I didn't know if I'd ever get married or have a child or get a job or, those basic questions that everyone aspires to have in their life. But, I didn't know if that's all going to happen for me. Wow. So, but at the same time, the con of having those lines drawn is that we do tend to say, well, this is my fight, and it's an us versus them. I see. And that's not necessarily, I think cooperation is going to be the future where we all have to cooperate, and it's not about payback, it's not about fighting, it's not about enduring, it's about what can we do to all live together so that all our needs are met, so that way we can then thrive and not just survive in life. I like that. That's why she has her own show. Tell us about your show. Well, I've been doing a show on Naleo called Living Beyond Limitations. And basically what it is it highlights different resources or different issues in the community that might be able to, that is related to people with disabilities. I saw a hole where that population wasn't being met, and I see some people with disabilities out there, but I don't see a lot of them, and there are many reasons why. But I think whether you have a disability or whatever other challenges that you have, sometimes all you need is someone to show you, look, this is what's possible. And for them to say, yeah, okay, well, if it's possible for them, then it's possible for me. So the first show I did was on accessible Hilo, and I highlighted, I think, 5 different places in Hilo that were accessible to people with disabilities, and they could go and be out in the community, enjoy the outdoors, nature, each other. And so I think that was the first show I did.
Wow, that's great. And when is it? Is it continuing, or is it something that you do once in a while?
It's not a regular program like yours.
Okay.
But yeah, it's out there.
It's
you
out
can
there.
request it.
Yeah. That's great. And we are, our county has really taken charge on making all of our parks accessible, ADA accessible, and I heard that our island we're making strides in that area. There's a lot of room though for growth, but yet we're making a good attempt.
Yeah, and that's all we could ask for. I mean, no one's expecting miracles, and but we do, I think, as a disability community, expect inclusion. And if opportunities arise in which we can resolve challenges that prevent us from being able to fully participate next to you and work side by side, play side by side, then I think we should take those opportunities.
And figure out ways to cooperate so we can make it happen. And inclusion is such a beautiful term, because in a sense everybody wants to be included, and I think people who are ethnically different or culturally different, that's their beef. That's kind of like their beef with society. It's like, hey, I matter too, you know. And maybe I don't speak English as a first language, but I matter too. Maybe my history is not as unique as yours, but I matter too. So I think inclusion is a beautiful term. I like that term. And if we can have more of an inclusion mindset in how we develop policies and how we look at communities, we'll be better off at the end.
Yes.
So
all of us. And accessibility, you won't believe how many times I go into a restroom and there's an able-bodied person in the big bathroom stall. We all want big bathroom stalls. Just create big bathroom stalls.
But at the front.
Exactly. So it helps everybody. And everyone benefits.
That's true. That is true. Parking spaces, but please don't use the parking spaces.
And the white lines next to it, that's for my ramp to come through.
People are unaware. So the term has changed over time. Are you comfortable with the disability term? I know handicap. I mean, there's a history of terms. Well, tell us your thoughts on terms, how we use language.
I know there are people that get caught up on terms. If you look at the history of handicap, it actually comes from England. And handicap means people that were disabled, and they would beg on the streets, and they would take their cap off and bring it out to
cap in hand?
ask for money.
Cap in hand?
So it was a handy cap. It was handy to grab your cap and beg for money.
Wow.
So that's the history for handicap. So people find a lot of offense to the word handicap. So we then moved to disabled. But we're all truly disabled.
That's true.
We all lack in some sense. Then if you have me, I have a physical challenge, so we're physically challenged. So there's a lot of terms, but I don't think, and a lot of people I think are very careful about being PC, politically correct, and don't want to offend me. They say, oh, let's take a roll. I'm like, you know what? We could say, let's take a walk. I'm okay with that. It's not about the words. It's what's behind that and the intention. And so if I can see someone's heart and what they mean, then I don't.
It's all good, I like that. I like that too, because people feel it. Because if people walking on eggshells, then you don't know who they are, because they're tippy-toeing around you, so they cannot be their real self.
Right. So, which makes me have to work harder to help them know. It's like I have to crack more jokes to let them know it's okay. Relax. I'm just like you.
That's
so
good.
I want people just to be themselves around me.
Yeah, that's great. Tell us what are some of your challenges. I mean, what is you have such a positive attitude, right? And last week I had Bobby Ambronati on, and he had an interesting story too, and I kind of shared with him that positive attitude comes from a sense of humility, and you have that same sense of humility that feeling grateful for stuff. That's amazing. How did you get that? It's just yes, just. What do you think about that humility?
It's endowed.
Yeah, it's endowed. It's like,
yeah, came down from the heavens. No, I think for someone like, well, I'll speak for myself.
Yeah.
Someone like me, I have to work 10 times harder to do what you do. Or people, it's funny because people will say, oh, you're just like me, or you're just so fast. And what they don't know is I was planning 20 minutes ahead of time mentally what I had to do, and I had to, like for getting in the car. We're all going to follow each other. I plan 20 minutes ahead to get in my car because it takes them so much longer for me to get in my car.
Okay.
But then when they're ready, I'm ready.
Oh.
Right? So it appears like I'm just as fast as them, but I had to do all this planning. But because I know it takes that much time, and also receiving assistance from people who are so generous, and they are just at service for the sake of being at service, not because they expect me for anything from me. I don't tip every person that helps me. Yeah. But they just help. I'm more grateful for that.
Yeah. So it's okay to help. Because some folks think, like sometimes we've gone so politically, like my wife, for example, sometimes I'll say, open the door, like I'll open it. Where like when I was going to graduate school, I remember some of my colleagues, women, would say, let me open it. I want to open it,
Right, the feminine power.
Yeah, the feminine power. You don't have to do anything for me, but, in a sense, we've gone so far astray, we forgot to be human.
Yes, yes. And I've had a friend, and she incurred her disability later on in life.
Yeah.
And she got really offended when people would help her, as if it was some sort of statement that you're not able, or you're not enough. But for me, and I think for me, I appreciate when people offer, because I always feel like, oh, I'm imposing. Yeah. But at the same time, I think the resolution there is if you could just ask, would you like help?
Oh yeah, just like that. That's the answer. Yeah, that's the solution. You need some help.
Yeah, and we do that to everybody.
That's true.
And not just people with disabilities, elderly. Someone struggling with their groceries and kids. And
That's right. So how do you? So when you say you prepare, how do you like getting ready this morning to come to the show? Tell us, how did you prepare for that?
Well, I mean, I can do most things, but because of time's sake, I asked my husband to help me with a lot. So, for instance, this morning, he actually had to go to Oahu for work, so we had to get up at 4 in the morning. I had to shower. So he showered me, and he got me dressed. And then I actually blow dry my own hair. I put my own makeup on. And then he left, and then I had to get my son up and got him dressed, and made sure we all brushed our teeth, and we're out the door on time after the hectic mornings with the kid. Go. And so and we got in the car, and I drove him to school, and then hung out at Starbucks until I got to meet with you for the show, and it's just like everybody else.
How about driving?
Driving. Do you want to know how I drive?
Yeah.
I drive with a joystick. So kind of like a video game, but with my arm. I drive my chair with a joystick with my foot. I have one small foot. But the car I actually use with my arm. And the joystick handles gas, brake, and steering. And then I have a couple computers that actually start the car, handle signaling and honking and all that important stuff.
That's
honking more important in California than it was here.
Amazing. That's awesome. So there's almost nothing that people shouldn't tell themselves they cannot do. I mean, anything's possible if you
really want it.
Yeah.
And it might not be to achieve what you want. It might not look the way you think it's going to look. Just because I desire to be independent all the time doesn't mean I don't have to ask someone for help. Like my son and I, we were at Target yesterday, and after school, and I got him a hot dog, but I couldn't open the ketchup packets. And he couldn't open it because he's 5. And so I'm like, okay. So I just saw somebody waiting for their coffee, and I said, excuse me, could you open these? And people are so willing to help. And I think what's awesome is that we all need each other. And she helped me with that obvious challenge that I had to help my son eat the hot dog he desired to eat. But at the same time, she got to know herself as service, out of just pure service.
Yeah, yeah.
She got to experience that for herself.
Yeah, and it's actually, you're giving people blessings when you allow them to help. That's something that I think a lot of folks that I work with, men especially, who feel like, I don't need any help, once they're convinced that, sometimes when you use help, you're helping the other person.
Right. It's a give and receive type of exchange.
That's right, yeah. I noticed your cross.
Yes.
Does spirituality play a part in how does it play? Are you you're religious or you're spiritual? How does that? Both.
I'm both.
Okay.
I practice.
Yeah.
But yes, it starts with the spirituality.
Yeah, you mentioned that earlier. That's why about the spirit. And
yeah, it's I think that is what has helped me go through the challenges I've gone through.
Yeah.
So I always get emotional about this stuff.
That's okay.
But yeah, I've wanted to do a study where I interview people with disabilities who seem to be living the way I do, because I think there are a lot of people with disabilities that don't have the same attitude I do.
Yeah.
And I want to see if there's a correlation between a spiritual connection and their quality of life. And I think there is. I mean, that's just my theory.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this is all fact.
Yeah.
But spirituality plays a huge part. But this is actually my wedding ring.
Oh.
So
okay.
we had to get creative with the wedding
It's cute.
ring.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah.
People get caught up sometimes with religions. They draw lines too. Well, my religion's better than yours.
Right.
And we have more truth than you do. And if you want to be saved, you got to go follow these things. If not, you're not going to be saved. What's your thoughts on? I mean, is there a one way to believe from your standpoint?
I don't think there's a one way to practice. I think ultimately all religions, organized religions, say the same thing, which are the spiritual values and principles of love one another, love God.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think those are the main two commitments that we make when we have that spiritual connection.
Yeah. Probably everything kind of comes down to that too. Love God and then love each other.
Right.
Ultimately.
Well, and if God's one in each of us, then by loving you, I'm loving God.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Yeah. So that's good. It's easy for me to understand, but it's sometimes difficult for folks who get stuck, with this kind of my way or the highway.
Well, then that's just judgment, which is against the values that they supposedly believe in.
Yeah.
So, I think it's easy for us to judge one another based on appearances, based on affiliations, and we tend to label one another.
Yeah.
I think labels can be very dangerous.
Yeah.
Because it puts you into this box.
Yeah.
And if, for instance, if the doctors allowed, if my parents allowed the doctors to put me in that box, I don't know where I'd be today.
Yeah. And what box would that be?
Raised in an institution. I was born in the 70s, and that's what you did, is you put disabled kids in institutions. And they're raised not with love, but as medical issues. Yeah,
as medical issues.
Right.
Yeah, rather than the person or the spirit. Yeah. I like that. If that message can kind of like permeate, then I think we'll be in a better place. I think Big Island will be a better place.
Yeah.
If people can look into people's spirit and recognize themselves or God in that, then everybody's awesome.
Exactly.
There's no judgment. There's no boxes. There's no need to draw the lines. But we're not there yet, so sometimes drawing lines is helpful, like we mentioned earlier, to get us there so that we can be fully included. Yeah. So life is kind of a paradox a little bit, yeah?
It is. It's a learning ground. We're all learning, and growing, and if I have awesome conversations with friends of mine that are, that I work with, and they, someone said to me, if you're not growing, you're dying.
That's right.
So, and that could be applied to if you have challenges that you're going through. I'm an entrepreneur. I do inspirational speaking. I have a website, and I have a following, so people subscribe to my website.
Oh, okay.
And recently I just launched a campaign called Conversations with Pauline. So I invited people to ask me their questions, and every week I choose a question and I answer a question on video and I post it on YouTube.
Wow.
And I blast out an email to my followers and I let them know the latest video is up.
Yeah.
And the message before last was about, I didn't answer a question because I just had a message on my heart that I wanted to share in regards to Thanksgiving and the holiday season.
Yeah.
And it was really a message of hope.
Okay.
And a person from South America emailed me and he said, I appreciate your messages, but I don't really have any hope right now.
Wow.
And I just encourage him, please don't let go.
Yeah.
Just hold on to whatever you have left, whatever hope you have left. And he said, well, what does the future have to hold for me?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, you're never going to find out if you let go. So
That's right.
I encourage him, please hang on. He continued to, give me his story of what was happening. And, I completely lost train of thought of question I was answering. But, I let him, that he actually emailed me back and he said, you know what, because of you, things are looking up right now.
People got to hold on.
The challenges, yes, and the challenges. And I let him know, the challenges that you're facing right now is just growing.
Yeah.
It's just growing pains that you're going through.
That's right.
And thank God you're growing.
Yeah.
Because if you're not, you're dying.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, plants do it.
Yeah. That's good advice. We have a lot of folks right now who are struggling to make ends meet.
Yeah.
Couples who are struggling to stay in their marriage, kids who are struggling to make it in school. There's folks who are struggling with mental illness and hope. Which is kind of tied into faith. Those are two things that people, if they hold on, that it will not say it will pass to make light of it, but people will grow. They can blossom into something different if they hold on. But like you say, if they don't hold on, then they'll never know.
Yeah, they'll never find out. And I could say most of my growth has been done after, during those challenging times in my life.
Yeah.
And I have a good attitude, and I am humble. I am super grateful for all the blessings I have. And at the same time, I'm not going to deny the challenges and the anger and the frustrations I had as a teenager because I was so different.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, if Pauline can have a great attitude, okay, and despite whatever challenges and everything like that, man, there's no excuse for any one of us, and that's a good take-home message. What are some things that you like to? What do you hope for? What's some of your hopes then?
Some of my hopes.
Yeah, for I don't know, Big Island, this country, our world.
minor issues. I think for me, is an inclusive society.
Okay.
Is an opportunity for everyone to feel connected, because like I said, when I was younger, I didn't have that connection, and so that's, I think, what made me lose more hope than anything.
Yeah.
So knowing that I'm connected with people and that I'm validated. I think we all want to be validated and heard and say, yes, I see you, I hear you. And I think if we can all do that to one another, and our world is like that, then I think that would be a great world to live in. I mean, they say you could have heaven here on earth, and there's no reason anything has to happen in order for that to become reality.
Yeah.
We create that.
Yeah.
And so every choice that we make throughout our lives, we create the world we live in.
Yeah.
And so I take responsibility for my part in that, and hopefully other people take responsibility for their part in it.
Yeah. I like that. Very awesome, folks. So, hey, don't take it from me. Take it from Pauline. We can and we will, I think, make a difference if we keep with our positive attitude, if we keeping inclusive and keeping connected. So we love you folks, Big Island. I thank you, Pauline, for being here. You're an inspiration to me, and I think you're an angel. Thank you so much. And thank you, Big Island. See you guys next week, every Monday, Tuesday, 7:30 to 8 o'clock. Love you folks. Aloha.
On the island, we do it island style. From the mountain to the ocean, from the windward to the leeward side.